Watch TED Talks all the time. I'm a little bit of a business book junkie. I love Seth Godin, Malcolm Gladwell, the Freakonomics guys, Dubner and Levitt. So being out here at this event is really special for me. The TED brand is kind of the marquee in the marketing world, which is my discipline, what I studied at the university. My younger brother, is an investment banker. He's 41 years old, so he's no kid. And this week I said, I'm really excited about this weekend. I've got this huge TED Talk that I've been preparing for a while. I've been trying to get in for over half a year now. And he said, oh, Ted, what's that? Like some kind of Mark Wahlberg movie thing? And I'm like, what? No, it's not about a teddy bear. So I guess in the marketing world, TED's a huge deal, but maybe not in the investment banking world. We're going to get a few things out of the way. I've been doing this for 27 years now. I started mascotting in 1991 when I was a senior in high school and have done it my entire adult life and am still doing it. Minor league ballparks around the country and the Houston area schools. And I always get the same question. It's kind of a boutique industry when you think about it. There's only about 125 professional mascots in the entire country that do it as their only job and do it full time for pay. So when you meet people, they have a lot of questions. So I want to get the top 10 questions, and I've condensed this and given it to you in one-word answers. Number 1, is it hot in there? Yes. Number 2, so is this your real job? Or what's your real job? This. Number 3, can I have some tickets? No. Number 4, are you a furry? Depends upon who's asking. Number 5, how much money do you make? Lots. Is it hard not to talk? No. Do you sweat a lot? Yes. How do you see? Eyes. How do you pee? Penis. Are you a girl or a boy in there? Penis. If you take away one thing from today's talk, I hope that you're going to laugh a lot with some of the stories that I'm going to tell you. But if you take away one thing, I would like you to take away that vocational limitations and that your professional limits are really just self-imposed illusions. Whatever craft that you're in, whatever field of study that you have chosen, don't let anybody tell you that there's a limitation to where you can take it. And that, these type of people that do this for a living only make that. When I started at the Rockets, within the first month, this is back in 1995, I actually came down here just shy of finishing my degree at the University of Delaware, finished my last 21 credits, 7 classes right here, go Cougs, at the UVA. So I'm very familiar with this campus 2 decades ago. And my first month on the job, I was extremely unhappy and discontent. I moved down from the University of Delaware to a state where I knew nobody. I had no friends, I had no family, and I came down here for $20,000 a year. Now, even back then, that was not a lot of money. Average marketing majors coming out of Delaware were making 30 to 35. I had a double major and a philosophy minor. And I'm coming down here, going to the big leagues, the NBA, and I'm thinking I'm gonna, be paid well and make money, and I got paid $20,000. And in that first month, I had a boss that told me, and I'll never forget this. He said, if you want to make more than $40,000 a year, then you shouldn't be at this company. Because this company will never pay more than $40,000 a year for any mascot. I had a decision at that point. First thing I decided was to completely disregard what he said, not argue with him, but just make up in my mind that's simply not true. Next thing I had to decide was I had to create my own philosophy. If I had a boss telling me that, I had to be extremely self-resilient and I had to be extremely self-sufficient. I was not going to be given a script or told what to do or how to do it or how to go about making things happen. So I decided I'm not going to think of myself as a mascot. I'm not a mascot. I am an improvisational, interactive, physical comedian. I want to elevate what I'm doing in my own mind. I'm also a comedy sketch writer and a comedy actor, where I am doing 2-minute Saturday Night Live caliber sketches in front of 18,500 people. And if you want to know how it feels to bomb in front of 18,500 people, Mid-court to back of stage feels like 5,000 miles when you bomb in front of that many people live, and you're the one that wrote it, directed it, rehearsed it, produced it, and then executed it. The other thing I needed to do was, I didn't ever think of Rockets games as games. I thought of them as the show. We are in our seats when we go to a basketball game for almost 3 hours. The ball's in play for 48 minutes. It was my job to bridge the gap between 48 minutes and 3 hours for the show, and to create a show with real value. The other thing I needed to do was, throughout the last 22 years of my life, is I had to have daily, now some people will call this stubbornness, and I've been called that more than a few times by that lady right there, my wife. I like to think of it as persistence, perseverance, fortitude, commitment, and dedication. I had to frame up what I was going to do on a daily basis so that I could be successful with myself without a lot of extra support or help or guidance. I came up with an acronym. It was called SMILES. The S stood for stuff down. The M, marketing. I was a marketing and branding tool, a logo extension. I was a walking, living, breathing billboard for that team, so that every time somebody saw me at one of the 6,000 appearances that I did over the last 21 years, they saw me, they thought of the Rockets, and hopefully we were building lifelong fans with the kids and reinforcing our experience, and it was a good interaction so that they were more likely to buy tickets. The I stands for inspiration, inspire. Okay, that's where I was a cheerleader. We all know that home court advantage exists. It was my job to create that, mostly in the fourth quarter, so that hopefully when the game was on the line and everybody's cheering and we get them all on the same page, we win more games in Houston than we do on the road. The L, laughter. That's why I got into the business in the first place. I love to make people laugh. Most of the job is just improv and interacting and drawing people into your show. This isn't Broadway, where your audience is here, I'm lit here, and it's be quiet and watch. It's 360, it's lit. I'm trying to draw you into the show and get you to be part of it. E in SMILES was educate. This is where we were trying to go out and share a message of the value of education with predominantly the elementary school kids around the city, so that they focused on what I always call delayed gratification, but used a more simpler term for them so that they could focus on their education. And the last S in SMILES was stunts. Not only the physical ones that you saw some of here in bowl, but quirky P.T. Barnum-like stunts intended to get the focus of the city, free advertising with news coverage, and get people out to our games. So that's kind of what got me from point A to point B in a 21-year career. And what I'm happy to tell you is you can apply those same type of principles in your own career. Because that boss that told me I was only going to make $40,000, well, he left a year or two later. And I'm happy to tell you, and my wife's really happy to tell you, that for the last 10 plus years, I averaged $250,000 a year wearing a teddy bear costume. Shooting silly string, throwing cakes in people's face. But really what we were doing were those things that I just talked about. Now, things weren't always rainbows and shiny, and we're building towards a vision. I'm going to need a little help here. Can you bring this forward for me? And we have a little visual display here, just to show you, because we're not going to just talk about some of the things that worked in my career, and then I'm going to ask you to stand back, sir. We're not just going to talk about all the things that worked in my career. That wouldn't be fun. This is a t-shirt gun. I'm sure you've seen them. This is the smallest t-shirt gun that you can possibly get. It's called a Micro Mini. Well, back in 1997, we had a t-shirt gun that had 2 full tanks, about 5 times the size of this, 6 feet long. It was so powerful, we were only allowed to shoot it to the upper level. We had to introduce dancers to the lower level to throw shirts out, because those are the people that are paying the most money and they're not getting any t-shirts. Meanwhile, I'm shooting in the upper level. One of the dancers is looking this way, running this way, runs right into the back of me, knocks me down to my knees, sets the gun off, and I'm 20 feet from the huddle, where Rudy Tomjanovich is instructing our players. And Tino Mobley, who was our starting forward at the time, gets back. Now just imagine That was a gun this size. Katina got it 10 times, sorry, Ted. 10 times that size. Right in the chest. Put him out of the game. I don't know what happened. I just know the gun got shot off. I can only see like this. I pop up. Of course, I have the stupid painted on grin on the bear. It's always there. Oh, we got 30 seconds left. Who wants another t-shirt? Yeah, I get in the back. I'm taking off the head. And I'm dropping every curse word in the book. What the hell happened out there? You don't know, bro? My assistant, bro, you just shot Catino Mobley in the chest. He's out of the game. Not a second later, Catino comes hobbling around the side with the two trainers, muttering, effing bear. Watch where you shoot that thing, you effing man. The guy didn't talk to me for 2 years until he got the story straight that I didn't mean to shoot him. So on to a good story. We had a challenge. I got a call from a school early in my career. They asked me to come out and do a school appearance. And I'm like, and it was very much that, appearances. I looked at the games as shows, but anything outside the Toyota Center or the Compact Center or the Summit, which it was back then, was simply show up 5 minutes beforehand, make people laugh, hugs, high five, hijinks, and hilarity. The mascot 4 H's, and then get out of there. I show up at this school 5 minutes beforehand, and they're like, oh gosh, you're here, thank goodness. And I'm like, okay, which class do you want me to see first? Think I'm gonna pollinate around the school, going class to class. No. They had all kindergarten through 5th graders, all 650 of them, out of class, in the gym, seated, very organized, quiet, and waiting to see my hour-long presentation, which I had none. I'm a mute character, I don't speak, I'm about 23-year-old at that point, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So I think we fumbled through it, and I whispered like trivia questions for an hour into the principal's ear, and we gave out t-shirts to the kids that got the Rockets trivia questions right. But there was a challenge there. The way we answered that challenge, and part of what built into the success of Clutch as a brand, was we said, okay, we need a school show. So we developed an hour-long, interactive, what we called edutainment school show. The schools not only wanted to entertain their kids with, but also left a redeeming message, motivating and inspiring them to do well and to do as best as they could at school now. So we called it edutainment. We've done 1,800 of them now in front of 1.25 million kids at over 600 of the local 800 elementary schools. So there was a brilliant moment in our career where at first it started out as a oh shit moment. And it was terrible, but we turned it into something. Another bad moment. I ruined a Martin Luther King Jr. Day parade. It was one of the low points of my career and life. I was in tears over this. This is about 4 years ago. We're doing the MLK Day parade that we did every year right down in Midtown. We wanted to do a really good job this year. And my assistant, who'd been with me 16 years full-time, packed up Mylar streamers that day. They're metallic. When they're shot out of a cannon, they look much cooler. They give off a firework effect. They look shimmery, as opposed to paper streamers that are more matted and flat and less cool. And we wanted to give them the best. So I'm sitting on the hood of the Clutch van, and he's handing me t-shirts to throw out, and air horns, and cannons. And when we get in front of the grandstand, because we're saving the good ones for in front of the grandstand, there's a DJ and an MC, and all the other people up there, the dignitaries that are announcing the news, that's where they shoot. We pull it out, and I shoot one off, and a couple seconds later, boom! And at first, I'm gonna tell you right now, I thought that we were having a terrorist attack. My first thought was, oh shoot, there's some neo-Nazi racists that are, I hear the helicopter, all of a sudden I hear the helicopter over top, which was always there, but I just didn't realize it. It was a newscopter covering the parade, but I'm thinking like, oh my gosh. And then about 2 seconds later, it sets in onto me, that can't be a coincidence. And I yell back, Dominic was his name, hey Dom, was that us? And he's like, I don't know bro, I think so, I'm freaking out. Turns out, shot the cannon up in the air, they're metal. They blew into the power lines, hit the transformer, blew the transformer out, including 4 city blocks of power, including the main stage with the DJ, the band, everything goes silent. And there's Clutch with that painted on grin. Hey, t-shirt. Nobody stopped us. It was terrible. We apologized. We did get booked again the next year, oddly. They just said, no more live streamers. Another great thing that started out as a challenge is one year we had to figure out a sponsorship package for a sponsor, and we had to do it really quick and deliver some real high value. The team came to me. We were already doing all these school shows, so we were in front of kids. One thing we didn't have was something really cool to leave behind for the students after they just had this meaningful entertainment, interaction, and inspirational interaction. And a lot of these kids at these schools have never seen live entertainment in their entire life. So I said, okay, let me think about it for the weekend. We came up with the concept of doing storybooks and co-branding the storybooks. So not only that there would be a redeemable lesson for the student that taught them about the value of their education one year, another year it was cultural diversity, another year it was not being afraid to go to the doctor and healthy hygiene, hand washing, so different morals, but it was branded to the sponsor, creating a lot more value than just simply stamping a logo on a bobblehead and giving it out. Here, the story was actually about the sponsor. Turns out, now, as of the time that I left the Rockets, we had done 540,000 free books distributed across the city. So over 500,000 books, 7 different versions, 7 different stories with 3 different sponsors that we got out. And they're in libraries at elementary schools across the city. And it's also, we created a piece of inventory and an asset that the Rockets actually use to sell to their sponsorships, and it's looked at as a very valuable 6-figure piece of inventory. So, back to another bad one. I got punched in the face by a billionaire one time. Some of you who saw you might have seen in person, the inflatable air clutch, where I bop people on the head, or I act like a statue and then scare the players, or scare various people on hidden camera stuff. So one time I'm out on the court, and this is before owners were told they can't sit with their teams anymore. We're playing the Dallas Mavericks, and Mark Cuban's sitting with his team. And he's up, and you know Mark Cuban, he's up and he's on the outskirts, and I make a beeline over to him, and I bop him on the head. Now, you gotta remember, I take the arms out of the air clutch, and I bop him. So there's all this dead space, really, and he's just getting hit by an airbag, and it flops back. He's totally cool with it, and he's playing along with it. He wants to give me a shot back. Well, the thing is once the thing recoils back after I bop him, my face is right up against that front screen, and he steps forward and connects right with my mouth. Boom, I see stars, blood shoots out all over the inside of the costume. He loosened my 2 front teeth, and all I see is a quizzical look on his face like, I thought that would be softer. Totally cool guy. Years later, I shot him an email and said, hey man, we were trying to work something out for the 2010 All-Star game. I said, hey man, not sure if you remember this, but blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I totally remember it. I couldn't even remember why it felt so hard. Oh my gosh, so sorry. So he was really nice and conciliatory about it. I got 2 more stories for you before I leave you. My father was diagnosed with IPF in 2011. It's a degenerative disease that is terminal, and there's no known cure for it. It's a scarring of the lungs. It's non-lifestyle related. He ended up, miraculously, being saved by a double lung transplant from a man named Ian Heidemann, a 22-year-old young man out of Dallas-Fort Worth. Ian signed up to be an organ donor when he was only 19 years old, and he self-designated himself. My dad's still with us today. He takes care of my 2 sets of twins and my 17-year-old whenever we need him to. My mom and dad are still together. While I was visiting my dad in the hospital, I stopped by Life Gifts table, and I said, what is this all about? Your organ donation or transplantation or something, and I want to help. This is what I do for a living. I can speak for you. I can fundraise for you. I'll do whatever. I'll give you money. And they said, well, are you an organ donor? And I said, oh yes, absolutely. I remembered when I was 16 signing up to be a donor. And they said, can we see your license? I pulled out my license, and they were like, well, and in fact, it wasn't an organ donor, because it's in the lower right corner of your license. There's a little heart there. And I don't know why, for whatever reason, when I moved to Texas or when I changed, renewed driver's license or something, I wasn't. They said, no problem. The biggest problem and issue here is awareness. It's not that there's a ton of people making a conscious decision not to be, it's an awareness issue. So I got involved with Life Gift, and that's where you saw one of the things that Clutch did to try to drive the awareness issue in the registry. I got involved when there was 2.9 million people on the registry. There's 26 million people in Texas. I'm happy to report now today, after serving on their board and some of the Clutch promotions and a lot of work from a lot of other people, that we're over half of Texans on the registry now that are eligible. So millions upon millions of people have made that decision to say yes to saving lives. Running the Houston Half Marathon always made me question my sanity right around mile 10 when I'm in this big sweaty bear costume. Retirement's been good to me, as you can see. I was a lot trimmer and in better shape back then. The last screw-up story, and then I'm going to leave you to an amazing array of other speakers. My first year on the job, we had just won back-to-back championships. Every now and then, we got big-time A-list Hollywood celebrities. We get Jack Nicholson when we're playing the Lakers. I don't usually get told about this until an hour or two before the game, because quite frankly, that's when we find out they're last-minute things. I'm like, oh, I need to do a Jack Nicholson skit. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And there's a clip of it on that video. Well, what you don't see on the video is I come out wearing sunglasses, and they're playing Corey Hart, Sunglasses at Night, and I'm walking by, and I see Jack Nicholson sitting there next to our owner, and I flip out, and I do the Wayne's World, I'm not worthy thing, bowing down to him, and then I jump up, and because Clutch is a 92-inch waisted bear, I shake my rear in his face, and then I sit on his lap. Now, when I sit on someone's lap, I don't actually, I'm going to show you right here, I don't actually sit on their lap. I kind of just squat so that I'm not hurting them over them, and I act like the big 92-inch waist bear looks like he's sitting on his lap. So, huge eruption of applause happens when I'm doing that. And I'm like, huh? Big laughter. I was like, this is funny, but it's not that funny. Oh well, I jump up, I get down and I act like I'm kissing his feet, like I'm playing up to the big celebrity, the big VIP, and I go into the back. I'm like, hey guys, with my assistants, when I take the head off, why did everyone laugh out there? And they all start snickering. They're like, you don't know? And I'm like, no, what do you mean? Well, apparently, while I was sitting on Jack's lap, and the camera's right there, he thought it would be funny to wrap his left arm around me, look at our owner, wink, grin, and then go, So, it looks like Jack Nicholson gave it to me from behind, and then I jumped up, bowed down, and kissed his feet, and thanked him for it. That's what I've got for you guys today. Don't stop for a second, don't stop. You go out any other way, so we go out to that.
Can we please give it up for Robert, the Houston legend? Oh my goodness! Am I even alive right now? Was that real life? I felt like I was in the middle of like an SNL comedy sketch the whole time. I loved it. That was beautiful. I wasn't born in Houston, but I always claimed Houston really, really hard because like Houston kind of raised me. But I have not been to one rocket skate. So if anyone wants to buy me a rocket skate, let me know. But shout outs to Robert one time. Give him another big round of applause to him.